Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. After the Aaron Donald news, hope everyone was able to cope with that and kind of look towards the future now. But I think there was, obviously very bittersweet, very sad to see a great one retire and won't be able to see him on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays anymore. But obviously excited for him and his future and kind of where the team goes from here. So we'll get into a little bit more of that. We did touch on that on Friday, so you can check out our Friday episode if you want to do that. But we'll touch on that. We want to get a little bit more into Cam Kurl signing, as that was a big one for the Rams, plus any other free agents out there that could potentially, be in a Rams uniform start of the season. They got some visits coming up, so we'll get into all of that here on the Rams Skinny. First and foremost, as always, my co-host, my man, Ryan Skinny T. Anderson, repping the Dodgers hat today. I don't know if I've seen you wear that before. Looking
brand new, brand spanking new.
That would be why. Looking great. The LA looks a little bigger actually than I'm used to seeing. Is that like a different brand?
No, it's a new era still.
Okay.
But they call it the Cooperstown collection. So maybe I guess it's a throwback, but I did like that. That's why I pulled the trigger on it, because it was moving fast, as the website said. So
I like it better that it's it better that it's bigger. But yeah, usually it's like this little smaller print. But I'll get mine while you're talking. I'll just leave the screen. But looks good. But how are you? How was the weekend? I know you were on a little vacay up on the Central Coast, the beautiful Central Coast that this great state has to offer. So tell me how the weekend was.
Yeah, Cambria is a beautiful place to go. If you're ever in the neighborhood, definitely check it out. It's not super touristy, but it's kind of outside of Paso Robles. So if you do some wine tasting, definitely head to the ocean. Didn't disappoint, never does. Good food, beautiful views, beautiful weather, just nice and relaxing getaway.
Yeah, the Central Coast is, it's surprise. I don't know if it's just because it's a drive from LA and San Francisco, but it's like the one place in California that still is like not just overrun with people. And I think it's like the best kept secret, because even like tourists, when they come to the States, like they go to what? They go to LA, they go to Orange County, they go to the Bay. Like they don't go to Cambria or Pismo Beach, or if you go a little farther up to Monterey. So it's less crowded. And to me, it's like the best part of the state. Like if I could live anywhere, it goes like Monterey, Santa Barbara, and then probably like Morro Bay, Pismo Beach, Cambria, like those are like if I could live anywhere where money wasn't an issue. Obviously money is an issue, but that whole area, man, I love. So glad you had a good time. Did you see anything cool? Or you guys just like kicked it? Did you go to the beach a lot, or are you kicking it more like at the Airbnb, just relaxing?
Yeah, just more relaxing. Just kind of like they have some nice antiquing there, so we hit up the antique shops.
Yes.
And then just focusing on kicking back, reading some books, hanging out. Yeah, no beach time, but some walks out by the ocean. And it's whale season too, so we saw some spouts. We didn't see any of the nobody was breaching, but saw the spouts. So that's always kind of exciting.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, a little cold for like beach in terms of what people think of laying out, but it's kind of my favorite. That's kind of my favorite beach weather, where you're actually a little more bundled up, bring a book down to the beach. It's a little cooler, get your little whiskey in the flask. So
love it.
Anyway, good. Glad you had that. I actually went up, we ended up going up to Big Bear, so we got to enjoy some snow. So both of us were out of town. Went up to Bear. It wasn't supposed to snow, and then it snowed like 3 to 4 inches on Saturday while we were up there. And stayed in a little Airbnb and got some snow time for Mia. So we had a lot of fun too. Got back yesterday and now back into it.
I was out in short sleeves by the beach, and you were in the mountains with your parka on. Gotta love California. Love LA, baby. Love it.
Gotta love it. Yeah, very diverse weather all over. And then today down here in the Southland, we're at 75 and sunny, so it feels like a very spring day here. Show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Is going to give you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. This is Skinny T, the best betting time of the year. Obviously, I love betting football. I know it best, but March Madness is some of the most fun betting, even if you know nothing about it, just because Thursday and Friday are some of the most fun, and it goes 4 days, really, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, when they do rounds 1 and 2. Just a ton of slate of games. They say it's the least productive workday of the year for most businesses. And it's just a lot of fun to throw some bets down, throw some parlays. You can do it all at betonline.ag, and tell them the guys at the Rams Skinny sent you. So let's go ahead and jump into this. We won't talk too long. We talked, a whole episode about Aaron Donald. We could talk more, obviously, just paying our respects, but just did want to mention there's been some updates, I guess. Peter Schrager this morning, who's obviously really close with Sean McVay and the Rams organization on Good Morning Football, kind of laid down some nuggets, if you will, basically saying the Rams were aware this was coming. It didn't come out of the blue. I'll let you kind of expand on it, but basically, Spark Note version. After the Detroit loss, McVay felt that was probably it. It was a good vibe that was kind of Donald's last game. So the team had been preparing for that. They wanted to make sure they did right by Aaron Donald while also not crippling themselves for the next, 3 years while he's under contract. So that's where that restructure came in, but it still did give him a signing bonus versus a roster bonus. So we won't get too crazy in numbers because I still don't know what the hell is totally going on with all that. But your thoughts on just kind of the new updated situation on, Aaron Donald's retirement?
Well, and I think we touched on the other episode, but what is this team doing team building wise, adding offensive linemen when they know they're losing the greatest defensive lineman of all time to retirement? It's very strange.
Yeah.
You know, still, this offense is going to be really interesting, but the defense certainly didn't get any better with this. So, that's some confusion. There are some conflicting numbers out there. Peter Schrager did drop that he was going to be just going to cost the team about $1 million this year, which conflicts greatly to what Over the Cap put out, which is about $23-24 million cap hit for this year. So I don't know if Schrager's got the inside track on that. If he's heard something, if that's the case, that'd be incredible. That'd be a lot of moves they could make with that kind of money. Not that there's a lot of edge rushers out there. Just before we hopped on here, Chase Young got picked up by the New Orleans Saints. So, that's kind of my main question is if they did know and there were no steps taken toward addressing it, and how do you address that? That's the question, right? You don't. I mean, you're not going to find Aaron Donald anywhere.
Yeah.
Draft, free agency, whatever. But you look at the depth chart. You got Kobie Turner on the depth chart for the defensive line. Bobby Brown's probably going to move into a starting role, and then Desjuan Johnson. The famous Desjuan Johnson everybody knows and loves.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the defensive line right now. That's a big hole in the depth chart. There's not even depth behind those guys, much less just those guys. So
Yeah.
that's where my head instantly went.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And we talked on Friday just because we didn't really know. And so now it's, as you said, it's kind of even almost more, I don't know if head scratching is the right word, but considering they, knew this was coming, and Schrager mentioned it, and obviously he's like best friends with Sean McVay, was a big part of his wedding, and he's a very good, obviously, reporter at what he does, but he's very pro spin with the Rams, which is fine, and it's not they're necessarily breaking news, but he basically said Sean McVay's a genius, always thinking 1, 2, 3 years down the line. And they've been wanting to kind of have this shift on offense anyway, which we talked about all season, going from zone run scheme to a gap run scheme, seeing them commit a little bit more to the run game, still abandon it sometimes, but committing a little bit more. Obviously now investing in the offensive line. So those all come in line, and that's great. And overall, we like the moves. And you look at that center front with Dotson, with the added Jackson, and with Steve Avila, not Avila. We've been saying it incorrectly, or I have at least. So I know our new good friend, listener of the show, pointed that out. So thanks for letting us know that. But Steve Avila moving into center. So, very great moves there for the offensive line. But yeah, to your point, it's just so interesting. And I do believe they have a plan. I don't think they're just like swinging and missing or, just doing things blindly, because we know how smart Sean McVay is, and we know he's a big part of roster construction. We know how great Les Snead at his job. So there's got to be a reason for this. Just not knowing those answers yet, it is very interesting that you're losing the greatest player to ever play for your franchise, who also is the reason your defensive front has been, successful with other pieces around, because he hides a lot of deficiencies. You know that's leaving, and instead of fortifying it a little bit, like you said, you're never going to find another Aaron Donald, but at least adding some depth, they don't add anything. And now they've added to the back end, which we'll talk about, which was a great signing in Cam Kurl. They get Darius Williams back. We talked about the offense already. And, we'll see. It's just not a lot there on the defensive line. So we kind of joked about it, but it almost feels like them saying, you know what? We know we can't replace Aaron Donald, so let's not even try to add anything. And basically, let's make sure our defensive backfield is a lot better this year. Let's make sure our offense is one of the best in football. And let's just hope our defensive front, can maybe hold, rushers to, under 125 yards a game. And if we can get that kind of production, then, maybe we'll be okay.
Yeah, that's certainly one way to go about it. It really changes everything. This news changes everything. Everything on the defense revolved around Aaron Donald. The fact that they could get away with not necessarily having a star edge rusher, bringing in a guy like Leonard Floyd, having rookies and different guys kind of rotating in on the edge, that was because Aaron Donald was there. Now without that, what does this defense even look like? And it's an added question in what does Chris Shula's defense look like? Is it going to evolve into something completely different? Which is, if we want to get into the free agent signings, Cam Kurl is a different kind of safety than they've had recently. You know, big hitter, guy that plays a lot in the box, played some linebacker, played some dime, played some nickel. Kind of almost what they were doing with Quentin Lake last year.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how many more, what kind of evolutions we're going to see coming out of this, but it's all going to change because that was the nucleus, that was the center of this defensive universe.
Yeah. Well, and that's a really good point, because I think they realized that doing things the way they've done them for essentially 10 years, and like the defenses have obviously shifted a little bit here and there, and you've had different defensive coordinators and some different ideologies. But as you mentioned, it always revolved around 99 and what he could accomplish and what he could, maybe hide for other deficiencies or what he could exploit in other ways. And so now, knowing he won't be there, instead of trying to replicate that in some form by bringing in, another D tackle, which I still think they need to bring someone in. But instead of trying to do that, it feels like they're just totally shifting and saying, okay, we're going to, let's get speed on the back end with versatility there. And then we're going to kind of plug and play on the defensive line until we find what can work. But we're not going to overpay. We're not going to panic by any means and say, hey, we're losing 99. So let's go try to pry Chris Jones away or something from the Chiefs for a big payday or something like that. So that's a good point. I mean, I think it's just an ideological shift. And so let's get into Cam Kurl a little bit. I mean, I think this was a really good signing. Super young. You mentioned it, very versatile, can play in the box. They lose, obviously, Jordan Fuller, who signed a contract with the Carolina Panthers. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the entire 2020 class is no longer with the Rams. I think he was the last one, right, with the Rams still.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Wow.
Yeah. So the entire 2020 draft class now gone. Not one of Les's best draft class, but I've talked about this before. That's actually surprisingly more common than people think. A lot of people will look at that and say, wow, what a horrible draft. But in reality, when you look at your draft class 4 years later, if you basically can re-sign 2 to 3 guys in that class, that was a really good class. It's not not great losing all of them, but it's not as uncommon as people think. But anyway, so your thoughts on Cam Kurl overall, because I think this was a really good signing, especially 2 years, $13 million. I mean, not a bad payday either.
Yeah. No, this is my favorite signing so far. I think it makes me curious. Like I was saying, what's this defense going to look like? He's a big hitter. He's a physical guy. Definitely lacked that last year. I think Russ Yeast was probably the most physical guy out there. And, as you were saying about the potential of adding Justin Simmons, and it changes a little bit, but at each level, you've got a guy that is kind of the general of that. So in the backfield, you got Cam Kurl, you got Ernest Jones in the middle. And then, now the question is who's up front, who's the general up front. So, and with the amount of attention that Donald did bring, having a guy that can play in the box, that can stop the run, it's going to be huge. And Cam Kurl is that guy. So, yeah, I think that's a fantastic signing.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, still young. I think I said 25. He's actually 24 years old.
Wow.
So lot of football left, and it's only it's a small deal. But what 3 picks I think recently, or 3 interceptions, excuse me, over his career. Not just last year, but yeah, this is a guy that was developed, a former 7th-round pick out of Arkansas. So a guy that's developed well and now gets rewarded for it. I love as soon as he signs with the Rams, or has the tweet of Matthew Stafford from the Super Bowl waving after winning the Super Bowl. So
that was good.
it's like, all right, this guy wants to be a Ram. He's here. So I think he's just going to be a welcome addition. And so we'll see now. So as it stands right now, things are still going to change. Obviously, I think they'll still maybe add 1 or 2 guys free agency, and then obviously the draft. But as it stands right now, most likely we're going to see Kurl and Yeast as your 2 back end guys. Darius Williams. You think Kendrick as the other starting corner?
That's where they're at right now. Yeah. And then, Kobie in the middle.
Kobie, and then Quentin Lake as the star or money in those situations. That's probably is this probably what the back end looks like in your mind?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, how do you feel about that back end as it stands?
I feel better. I feel a bit better about it. They're hosting a Tre'Davious White visit sometime soon. That's an interesting one. Not in love with that one just because he's been so hurt over the last 2 years, both ACL and Achilles injury on the right leg, and an older guy. But yeah, I mean, it's what are they going to do in the draft is kind of kicking the can down the road a bit to answer the question, because now they do have, they didn't answer any of my questions on defense yet. I mean, the safety, but there's still questions,
Yeah.
Still have questions about cornerback. So outside cornerback, that's, they can get, Cooper DeJean is somebody that's been talked about. I think he's a plug and play player.
Yeah.
Be really, really great in the defense. So I'm feeling better about it. They didn't get much taller, by adding Darius Williams. Cam is 6'2" though. So, I still have questions. I still have questions.
Yeah. Yeah. Plenty of questions for sure. So let's talk in the show with this, some like potential free agents still out there, and we'll be turning to the draft. Excuse me.
No Garoppolo talk.
Oh yeah, let's do that first. Yeah, let's do that first. And hey, shout out if anyone wants this Ring Me Aaron Donald shirt. You got to go to LAFBnetwork.com. Pick one of those up. Help support us, small business. That'd be great. So use promo code LAFB. You get 25% off. So get this Aaron Donald shirt. Go to the LAFB locker room. Easy to find. LAFBnetwork.com. You can get an Aaron Donald shirt. So yeah, let's quickly. Jimmy G, 1-year deal. The new backup met with a lot of unhappiness among Rams fans. Curious, we were talking a little bit before we started. Curious if that was because of his play or more because he was a 49er for so long and obviously had his way during the regular season against the Rams, and more so when it was Jared Goff playing against him. But not a lot of love for Jimmy G signing as the backup. But your thoughts overall on it's only a 1-year deal, but getting him in, he will miss the first 2 games due to suspension. So we'll see what they do for weeks 1 and 2. But after that, he will be seen as the second man in charge behind Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I don't mind it. His biggest knock is that hasn't been healthy for very long. Again, he missed a bunch of games this year as well. Came back at the very end. He played in week 18. I don't know if the Raiders situation is the best way to judge a quarterback.
Yeah.
Because
that's fair.
So, but as a backup, you're not going to be, the health thing isn't as big of a deal, right? Because, you're not playing week in and week out. So hopefully he'll be able to rest those weary bones and ligaments and all that stuff. And, last time we saw him as a 49er anyway, he came in as a backup for Trey Lance and played really well. And, I think LA is a better situation than Vegas was. He's not gonna have the pressure of being a starter. So as long as his deal is really good, it's a 1-year deal. I'm all for it. If it gets kind of in that $10 million range, then I don't love it as much, but I doubt it will be. I don't know. He sat in free agency for quite a while, and not a lot of people bid on it. But he's going to be back in that Shanahan McVay system, which he was good in, and he proved that he can win games in that system. He's not Matthew Stafford. He doesn't have that arm strength. He's not. He doesn't offer really anything different in terms of what Matthew Stafford offers. Whereas Carson Wentz is just a big guy. That kind of changes some stuff, which I liked. But this is like when they signed Blake Bortles to me. It's like he's a great backup.
Yeah. I think if you're signing him with the anticipation that he will take over as the starter one day, then which obviously they don't, because they only give him a 1-year deal. What's really interesting. Oh, never mind. Okay. Sorry, I was going to say something else that actually wasn't. It hadn't updated on one end, but it was updated the other end. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it's fine for a backup. This makes me believe Carson Wentz was asking for way too much money. He also, we know, and we've talked about a lot, he wants to probably go somewhere one more time to be able to compete for a starting job, which that isn't here. He's running out of places as well. But my guess is he either wants that or, a solid payday to be a backup. And so I'm guessing Jimmy G is going to be cheaper than what Wentz will eventually sign for, unless Wentz fully runs out of options and then has to settle. And you get that, there's that gamesmanship aspect, right? Like you get him from your rival. Maybe he'll give you some secrets of Shanahan and some stuff that, when he was with the organization that they did on offense that can help this new look defense out a little bit. So, maybe some gamesmanship there. And yeah, I mean, it's for the backup quarterback. It's better than what they went into with last year with Brett Rippon. It's better, honestly, than what they've had since probably Blake Bortles, when they had with John Walford and Bryce Perkins and then Brett Rippon. I mean, he's the most solid backup out of that group. He's a guy, if Stafford were to go down, fans, whether you like him or not, because of his history and being a Niner, you should feel good that he can win you a game or two. I think everyone should feel better about that based on what Wentz maybe would have been better. But again, we don't know behind the scenes. I'm sure it was a money issue or just him wanting to be able to start. But out of the other backups there, and we still don't know a lot on Stetson Bennett. I know he's been practicing again down in Texas, but we haven't had an update on what his status is with the Rams. But even if he was going to be back with the Rams, no logical person can sit here and say they would feel better about Stetson Bennett coming into a game for an injured Stafford than Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo has played in the Super Bowl. He's a better backup than what was out there. So for a backup quarterback on a 1-year deal, I don't see a problem with it. I don't.
Yeah. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. I'm not losing sleep over him as the backup. I think, you just feel better. That's how you got to look at the backup, right? Like, is this a guy that can win games if called upon? If your backup is someone you're grooming to become a starter, that's different. Right. But if you're signing a vet to come in and just kind of be in the room, there's a lot of off the field stuff, run scout team, different things like that, then this is a good signing, especially with who is left out there. So we'll see when the official contract comes out, but I'm surprised it hasn't yet, but they just announced the Cam Kurl signing this morning also. So they're just taking a little longer to announce these signings that happened over the weekend. So with that being said, based on who is left out there, let's just talk a little bit back and forth on some potential guys. We just saw Chase Young go off the board. I don't know if it's official, but reports are he's signing a deal with the New Orleans Saints. So no longer is Chase Young an option for the Rams at edge. So getting even less and less optionality for sure at that position, but others as well. But let's talk, and we'll just go back and forth. Give me a name that's out there still that it doesn't even have to be a perfect fit, but just some intriguing names out there that you think, hey, this is a guy. Well, okay, let me back up. I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. Mondays are always crazy. My head's all over. You mentioned it, but I at least want to touch on it a little more. Tre'Davious White is set to visit with the Rams. You kind of alluded to your thoughts on it, but just give me a little deeper on that. Your thoughts on the potential of Tre'Davious White if he, doesn't leave LA and, stays here with a contract. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, He hasn't played a full season since his second season in the league. He's played 10 games in the last 2 seasons combined. ACL and Achilles injury. Don't like that. He was obviously in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year in 2019. Had some great production in that, but that was a long time ago. He's not a spring chicken any longer. Again, I think he's under 6 feet. It's not the end of the world. I mean, he's 5'11". That doesn't disqualify him at all, but it's not my favorite option out there. My favorite option out there for cornerback is a 1-year deal for Stephon Gilmore. Played really well last year. Would bring a ton of experience. But do you have any thoughts on Tre'Davious White? Do you have a more rosy outlook than me?
Yeah, I'll keep it quick, and then I want to hear more about Stephon Gilmore because that's interesting. I do probably have a little rosier outlook, but it all depends on what the deal is and the prices. I mean, this is a guy that could be an all pro if healthy. Now that's the big thing, if healthy. And we've seen the Rams, not have the best luck with injury prone guys actually being healthy when they come here. Usually that's with the draft more than it is free agency. But if they run some tests or if he's medically cleared, I know he's still, coming back from it anyway. So I don't know how that exactly will work, but obviously there'll be contract language around that and he'll have to meet certain benchmarks to get it. But if the money's right, I mean, this is a guy that can be your true shutdown corner if healthy. And I believe he's 29. So this is going to be his last big contract. Corners we see a lot after 30. It's like they really kind of fall off a cliff. So this will be his last, prove it, get paid, have a big thing. So that worries me a little bit because it's like if it's his last one he's going for, is he going to be really looking for still a hefty double-digit payday, or will he sign a 1-year deal, 2-year deal with the Rams for a cheap end, prove it to get one more big deal at 31 years old? So there's just a lot of minutia to have to kind of go through. But if they can make the money work, I would love to take a swing at it just because of the ceiling. And a lot of times with free agency, we talked about a lot. You're going to overpay in free agency, but a lot of times too is you're looking at floor versus ceiling. Do you want a guy that has a higher floor you kind of are given a baseline with, or do you swing for the fences for a guy that has a really high ceiling, but there's a lot more risk? This would be a high ceiling, but a lot more risk. But if the price is right, I'd be willing to take it. So I got excited about it when I saw that he's meeting with him because, this could be their lockdown corner since Jalen Ramsey was traded. But I mean, if not healthy, you're paying a lot for a guy that, isn't out there very often. So a lot of what ifs with that one.
Yeah, it seems like an un-Rams move, but now we don't even really know what that looks
Yeah.
like.
Who are these Rams?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Stephon Gilmore, he's they're projecting his contract to be about $7 million, which would be a kind of expensive contract, but he played over 1,000 snaps. He's been super healthy. I mean, his best playing days are behind him. But I think that experience factor just brings a lot. We talked a lot about just how inexperienced the Rams defense was, and he's a solid vet and played pretty well last year. I don't think he had nine pass breakups and 2 interceptions. Nothing to sneeze at there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, any thoughts on that kind of idea? And 6 feet, he's 6 feet 190.
There you go. So yeah, I like Stephon Gilmore obviously has played at a high level for a long time. How much does he have left in the tank? That's the big question. But from just a year ago, I mean, if you get even close to that production, I think that's a good signing. And so I would, definitely explore it. You could come in as a vet, wise vet to a very young group, obviously, even younger group now that Aaron Donald's gone. So you got to at some point have a few veteran guys in that locker room on that side of the football. And I know obviously Ernest Jones is probably the vocal leader at this point, but still he's on his rookie contract. So you got to have some guys in there that have some teeth in the NFL. And Stephon Gilmore would certainly be that. If we're keeping it at corner position, this is a guy I mentioned before free agency even opened. Adoree Jackson is still out there. Now they may be priced out of Adoree Jackson because, I believe he probably is close to that double-digit threshold, whether it's 8.59 million or 10, 11 million. It's kind of in that range. The fact that he hasn't signed yet, maybe not. Maybe he's him and his agent are overpricing him than what teams value him at. So again, it sounds like common sense, but for the Rams, if the money's right and they can get cheap, like Adoree Jackson, based on his production, based on his age, based on his history here in LA, being an SC Trojan alum, that would probably still be my favorite because he still has enough NFL experience to be like that vet presence. But I think he's still young enough that you can get like a 3-4 year deal and get all those years out of him. Where Stephon Gilmore, this might be like his last year of like high productivity. Now, if they get him, like you said, if they get him for a year for $5 million, like why not? I mean, if your Super Bowl windows this year, why not? So I'd be fine with either of those, but I would lean probably Adoree Jackson in the corner department.
Yeah, probably a bit more left in the tank there. So this guy, another old man, but I kind of got excited about Calais Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
7 sacks last year per PFF. They always inflate the sack numbers yet. So
somehow
I
don't know
weird.
how. How do you inflate a number that's like a fact?
Cut
How
and
do you
dry,
inflate that?
I don't know. But also really great in the run game. So he can kind of do a little bit of both. Again, not a long contract. But he's kind of an ageless wonder. He just keeps going, and he had a good season last year. So obviously it all comes down to the contract, but a bit of a stopgap until you find just the right guy. And they need to add depth. They need to add quite a bit of depth along the defensive line. So that's kind of my number 2.
Yeah, I like Calais Campbell a lot. Again, yeah, you said it, ageless wonder. I mean, he's 37 years old and still productive, and we just talked about needing kind of a vet presence. And if you get one on the back end, you got to get one on the front too. And no one's gonna replace Aaron Donald and his production and what he's able to bring to the defensive front. But here's a guy that has been there, done that, done it on a lot of different defenses, has done it around the NFL, and been productive pretty much every stop he's been at. And so he's gotten double teams most of his career. So a guy that can help free up Kobie Turner or whatnot. And I think at this point it's safe to say the Rams will absolutely be drafting a defensive tackle in this draft. Not saying it's going to be their first selection or even their second, but with those 11 picks, one of those will be a defensive tackle. And having a guy like Calais Campbell on the roster, I think, is a great move for not nurturing is kind of a weird word for football, but for mentoring a rookie in that position. Because I mean, you're literally right now, your mentor for the room is Kobie Turner, who's going into his second year. So you gotta have some age there at defensive tackle, just for not even Sunday production, but just during the week production and film study and stuff like that. And so Calais Campbell, I think, can give you a lot of value in that department, maybe even more so than what he can do on Sundays. But what he does during the week with his, what he's done for 17 seasons, I think can speak volumes for that young room. So I love the Calais Campbell one. I think that's a good one.
Are there any edge rushers in free agency that are worth going after at this point? I think, we've got Jadeveon Clowney kind of tops the list for everybody.
Yeah.
Not a typical Rams defensive, like outside linebacker, more of the DN, hand on the ground kind of guy. But I mean, we dropped a couple. We got like Michael Dana's still my guy. Michael Dana. I'm not sure. The Seattle Seahawks ended up picking up Darrell Taylor, so he's off the board, and he was another one of my kind of sleeper picks. For edge. But this was in a pre-retirement world. So
yeah, exactly. This was pre Aaron Donald no longer being here.
Yeah.
There's you just look at names. Randy Gregory, he's 32. He hasn't been productive the last few seasons. Got a big payday from the Broncos a couple years ago. That obviously didn't work out as they, released him mid-season last year. He goes to San Francisco, doesn't do much to aid their Super Bowl run, but he's a guy that has had some production, brings some age with him. So Gregory is the name we could maybe look for. Charles Harris, as we mentioned, I think 2 episodes ago, from Detroit. I believe he's still out there. It's hard to see what's updated and what's not all the time.
Yeah.
But he's a guy that, at least has some talent on that side. And obviously there's familiarity. He's a free agent, so you can do what you want. But obviously Brad Holmes and Les Snead are very close. And I'm sure they could have some conversations about how that, how his play was with the Lions and whether he could be a good fit. I mean, Bud Dupree, I guess, is out there.
Well, we talked about Van Noy. I'm still in favor of that one.
Van Noy would still be my outside of Van Noy would be my number one choice still. Which I could see that happening, especially because he was in LA with the Chargers, so he knows the LA area and he gets to choose. I mean, the first wave is over, so he's probably one of the top, even at 33 or 34 years old, he's got to be one of the top names still out there. And so he'll probably have, where do I want to play? Do I want to play in beautiful LA for a contender in the Rams, or do I want to play for potentially another contender, but in a different city? So I think Van Noy is still probably my, top choice for sure at edge.
Yeah. Anybody else on your list? Any other wild cards? My wild card is taking a swing on J.K. Dobbins at running back.
Ooh, running back. Okay.
Yeah. I'm completely contradicting myself with kind of what I was saying about Tre'Davious White as injury risk, but bringing him in a speedster that was never really was able to find his footing and with the Ravens, but kind of flashed when he was playing. Give him a chance to see, give him a nice warm landing spot here in LA. And, I think the most or second most healthy team last season, and they've had that track record. So, that's a good selling point. But they got to add in the backfield, and taking a chance on a young guy like that. He's under 25, I think, still, even though he's been hanging around for a few years. That and or Deontay Foreman, who's just a big bruiser of a dude, 6 feet tall, 235 pounds, add a little heft back there. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, that's I like that. That would be definitely interesting and one to keep an eye on. But a real wild card here. And I don't know if they if they want to add more to the offensive line, but I believe David Bakhtiari is still out there, right? Tackle.
Yeah.
And Alaric Jackson showed some good things, but hey, you get a Bakhtiari as your left tackle, and with what they did in the center of the line, and obviously Havenstein on the right, like all of a sudden you might have one of the best offensive lines in football. And they might still be in that running anyway. But I think as of now, if healthy, Bakhtiari is probably a little bit of an upgrade over Alaric Jackson. But it gives you some flexibility there. So don't see that happening. That's a true wild card, but crazier things have happened.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you really don't have to spend any draft capital on the offensive line. That's for sure.
Yeah. The offensive line currently, with I think they've restructured everybody they're going to at this point. They're spending the fifth most in the league.
Look at that.
On offensive line. So
look at that.
It's impressive.
Who would have thought Rams spending the fifth most?
Yeah, at any position.
So, I think we gave a good chunk of it. I still think Adoree Jackson is probably like my number one choice addition. Allen Robinson they could bring back if they really want. He's a free agent again.
I think somebody could get run out of town and I'm not going to back him up again. I'm not throwing my weight behind him ever again after what our good buddy Jamal said to me.
Yeah, took us through the ringer on that one.
Yeah. Still holding it over our heads.
One more I'm going to throw out just randomly, just because there's so much talent. 5th overall pick just a few years ago, super young, still 26. It's not a position that the Rams have ever valued. I'm just curious based on, losing Donald, and obviously Ernest Jones is their guy in the middle. But Devin White intrigues me. A guy that, so much success right away with Tampa Bay, and then oddly had this like weird falling out last year and was like a healthy scratch towards the end of the season. Oh. But we saw like great production from his early. And like I said, 5th overall pick in his draft class. He's still only 26. I'd be curious what a pairing would look like if with him and one Ernest Jones. Like, I don't know if that's too much similarity, whatever, but it's one that I'm not saying I think it's happened. It's not even one I know if I actually want to happen. It just intrigues me. It intrigues me because that's a very high profile quality player that has just like disappeared through this free agency and for whatever reason.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one that nobody's really struck on him yet. And kind of an outside one for me as well. Tier Tart. I think he got kicked off of a team basically in Tennessee and got picked up by Houston and still hanging out there. Defensive lineman. Never had great production, but it's kind of a warm body situation at this point in free agency. You gotta take what you can get.
Yeah.
And he's got some interesting upside though.
I like that, but let me correct before I get scolded. I did as of this morning, so we're recording still early. Devin White signed a 1-year deal with the Eagles.
Oh, okay.
So sorry, that was on the fly, guys. So if anyone comments before listening, 45 seconds later, hopefully you stayed on the show and didn't erase this from your memory. But yes, Devin White not available. Signed a deal with the Eagles. So never mind. Forget that one.
Yeah, definitely.
So, all right. Anyone else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I think that's good. Another funny tidbit from Schrager this morning. Possible Hollywood Aaron Donald connection. You might dip his toe into acting. And I did a little research. He has one IMDb role on Magnum PI. He was in an episode. Someone stole his tablet that had the playbook on it.
Nice. Yeah, I saw that too. I'd be interested. And because he just seems like such a shy guy. Like I can't even Schrager mentioned The Rock and John Cena. It's like, yeah, but WWE, they're literally like actors doing that. It's a pretty seamless transition into acting. Like Aaron Donald is away from the spotlight, doesn't do a ton of interviews. He was even on the Super Bowl run, every one of his interview things, he was just hammered, when he's on the late run circuits and stuff. I don't see him as a guy that just wants to be in front of camera, but he would be good, I think. And if it's a role that's not talking heavy, not saying because he can't, but it doesn't seem like he wants to, but it's more of a physical role. Obviously he'd be great at it, but I would love to see it. It's just, it'd be an interesting transition because I've never seen him want that kind of spotlight, but maybe
the next Carl Weathers, next Jim Brown, even,
Yeah, maybe that'd be great. I have no doubt he could do it. No doubt he could do it. It'd just be interesting for me to see. But yes, so hats off to the GOAT. One more time, one more sign off. Go get your Aaron Donald shirt at LAFBnetwork.com. Go to the LAFB locker room. LAFB promo code for 25% off if you want to use that. But thank you all for hanging out with us. Thanks for listening. We'll have plenty more updates when we record later in the week. See if any more transactions transpire. And then obviously we're going to start pivoting to draft talk here coming up. We get to talk about a first round pick for the first time since 2016 when Jared Goff was taken. So we've obviously talked a little bit at the combine and stuff about what they could do, but now we'll have some new insights since they've filled out the roster from free agency. And basically we'll be talking edge and defensive tackle for the next month, I believe. so we'll see. But for Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dowd. Thank you all for hanging out on the Rams Skinny. Have a great start to your week. We'll talk to you all here in just a couple days.